Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts on women and politics with you in this short virtual presentation at what I understand is the first ever virtual MNL conference. I'm honored by this invitation from my friend and mentee, Sheila O'Leary, but still slightly intimidated because I have never done a virtual presentation before. It is so positive to see the number of women engaged in political life in our province today, and particularly the number of women serving their communities as our municipal leaders. It's a big change from 1977, when I became the second woman ever elected as a city councillor in St. John's after 89 years of municipal government. Took them a while. At that time, women in politics were a rare and endangered species. It was Dorothy Wyatt, who now is a St. John's legend, who cracked that glass ceiling. She headbutted it in the city after they had gotten rid of the archaic property vote, and suddenly all citizens, not only property owners, had the right to vote. She confounded the old boys club establishment in St. John's with her quirky populist approach by going directly to the previously disenfranchised people with her slogan, "Vote for Wyatt, she won't be quiet." And she certainly wasn't. The reality, however, of public office was a shock. Most decision-making was done in special meetings in a smoke-filled room, and these meetings were closed to the media and the public. I found the attitude of the male members of council and senior staff ranged from hostile to chauvinistic and patronizing. Every morning before a council meeting, an inner group of men would get in the city manager's office before the regular meeting and share inside information that was not made available to the other members of council. I also watched with great interest over the years the development of the MNL from a small organization with one staff and a very limited mandate to become an effective and respected force in the policy making and development and of cooperative action around issues affecting local government. I don't want to dwell this morning on the past in this short presentation. I only wish to acknowledge that real progress has been made in facilitating the important role of women in public life. I also acknowledge that there is still a ways to go. Not all women entering public life sing from the same political songbook, and neither do all men. That is a stereotype. Women enter public life with different life experiences and from different perspectives and point of view. The important thing for us as women is to work toward a appreciation of our differences and to seek out these very many areas where we can work together. Feminist is not a gender-based definition. In my dictionary, feminist is someone who believes in equal rights for women. And I would define many men as feminists. And there have been many who have supported me throughout my political career, and I feel that perhaps many of you have had the same experience. They were the experienced ones, and many of them have been willing to help. Also, unfortunately, at least in my experience, I have sometimes received resentment and criticism from women that I met along the way. I was talking to my son, who lives in San Francisco, the other day, and I would classify him as a feminist. We were talking about the difference in political styles between male and female politicians, and his take on it was that women come at it with less ego, and they're more people-focused and more focused on the public good than their own particular issues. He said, that he felt that women's life experiences have made them far more sensitive to issues of social justice and inclusion and equality than men. So I said, good for you, Frank. Obviously, you learned a little bit from living with your mother, but, that was his spontaneous response to that question. What are the differences in political styles? When you go into public life, I always feel it's important to know what you stand for and to have a vision about what you want to accomplish. But to be effective in reaching our goals once we are elected, it is often good to, I use this overused American expression, work across the aisle or reach across the aisle to seek the areas where we have could get some creative compromise to get results. And here, I always feel there's more than one way to skin a cat. But I think whether it's men or women we're dealing with, I think sometimes being flexible and reaching out is a good way to get things done. There'll always be people who are rude and insulting to women. And I'm just one of many women in political life who have been the target of bullying and insult. So I have had to learn over the years not to internalize these comments and to realize that the person with the real problem is the one who is making these comments. I read a quote once by Eleanor Roosevelt, which I really like. And that quote says, "Nobody can hurt you unless you give them permission." But I decided I'm not giving anyone permission to be rude or insulting. Getting elected and being effective once in office requires two different skill sets. Elected officials need both, and continuing professional development and mentoring while in office could be very helpful both to new entrants and to people who have been in there. These areas would be in election readiness and governance, and I think perhaps the MNN could get involved in making sure that there is ongoing personal development to help women in politics. It helps retention, and it certainly helps with job satisfaction. During my 30-plus years experience as an elected municipal official, there were certainly many, many times that were deeply satisfying, otherwise I wouldn't have stayed in it that long. But there were also very challenging times. And I asked myself, why on earth do I bother with this? And I wouldn't be surprised, given the uncertain and challenging times we are experiencing in our beloved province today, if some of you are now asking yourself that same question. So in a sense, my answer to that question is the theme of my remarks today. Why should I bother? And I be bothered because I am passionate about the importance of local government and its critical role in building strong communities. I believe that strong communities build a strong province and a strong country. They are the foundation. And economically viable, healthy, and safe communities make our country strong. I have great respect for people who serve as our municipal leaders in committees large and small across the province, because I know that they do it because they care about the welfare of their communities and their fellow citizens. I believe very strongly that the collective voices of municipal leaders through organizations like MNL and FCM can influence the decisions that are made by our provincial and federal leaders. I know how important it is to have the voices of women heard around the tables where decisions are made. If there is any doubt about that statement, we have only to look today at the inspiring example of wonderful women leaders all over the world. Women like Jacinta Ardern, Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris, Angela Merkel, Chrystia Freeman, and so many others. And we've also seen lately on national television many of the female mayors and governors in the U.S. who deal daily with huge challenges brought about by the pandemic and the social unrest in their communities. And they do that with courage, dignity, and intelligent, steady leadership. We are all living in a strange and uncertain time. Newfoundland is experiencing significant economic downturn, and we have been mercifully spared the worst ravages of COVID-19. But what is often referred to as the new normal has certainly included restrictions on day-to-day activities that have made a lot more difficult and our lives difficult and stressful. As well, the uncertainty of when will it all end and what will the post-COVID world look like have made it so much more difficult for those who are charged with providing services to plan and finance and deliver on the expectations. So we know that there will be challenges ahead. Next year will be an election year for municipalities. We can all look back at all the decades in human history when real change has been possible. In the 40s, in the 1920s, in the 60s, and I believe that this decade, this post-pandemic decade, is going to be one where real change is possible. It has forced us to be creative and to look at new ways of doing things and new ways of approaching old problems. The immediate future in Newfoundland and Labrador will be a very exciting and important time to have the voices of Newfoundland women at the tables where decisions are made. I'm only sorry today that we cannot be together face to face to share experiences and ideas. But I hope you will enjoy the rest of this historic virtual convention, and I hope you will all stay in the game and encourage other women to run in the election. We need your commitment and your experience in local government in the challenging years ahead. Thank you for listening.